Tansei, I'm Krisanachkate. Welcome to APTN National News Daytime. First Nation women in Manitoba will soon get help buying their first home thanks to a provincial investment program announced on Wednesday. The Manitoba government is partnering with the Manitoba Tipi Mitoa First Nations housing program with a more than $1 million investment to make home ownership more accessible for First Nations women. The investment will create the Minowa Awayag Kuyag housing program. It will provide prospective first-time homeowners with down payment and closing costs and guidance getting through the home buying process. Eligible applicants must be First Nations women who are single or have children, lived in Manitoba for at least 10 years, and have a total household income less than $106,000. Nahani Fontaine is the province's Families Minister.
When we invest in First Nations women, we invest in the heart of our communities, our families, and our nations. And so we must invest in generations of strength, resilience, and possibility. Together, we are building a future where First Nations women can thrive and ultimately be safe in their own home.
Manitoba RCMP is asking for the public's help in locating two people from a Northern First Nation who went missing this week after they went snowmobiling together and never came back. On Wednesday, December 17th at around 12:45 p.m., Island Lake RCMP received a report of a missing two snowmobilers, 28-year-old Kyle Mason and 27-year-old Taryn Mason. They left St. Teresa Point First Nation on Monday morning on December 15th and haven't been seen since. Both the RCMP and the Mason family is asking the public to report to the RCMP if they saw them or knew where they were headed. Local search parties are now getting organized to actively look for Kyle and Taryn Mason, and they're searching the winter and ice roads in the area. His family says Kyle was last seen wearing an FXR jacket and black ski pants and was riding a 900 Grand Touring Skidoo seen here on your screen. If anyone knows where Kyle and Taryn are, you are asked to contact RCMP. Saskatchewan and Manitoba continue to dig themselves out this week after an Alberta clipper hit much of the prairies. Most of southern Manitoba was under a blizzard warning Wednesday night and Thursday morning. As a large winter storm moves east through the province, several drivers reported on social media of collisions, icy roads, and closed highways with very limited visibility. All schools in Winnipeg have been closed for Thursday as city crews worked throughout the day to clear the streets of all that snow. The RCMP was also imploring drivers to carefully drive on the roads or stay off the roads altogether. Between 15 to 35 centimeters of snow fell across Saskatchewan and Manitoba with up to 60 to 80-kilometer wind gusts. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. The Yukon Fish and Wildlife Management Board says it's going to launch an independent review of the territory's outfitter quota system next year. The board is the main branch responsible for fish and wildlife management in the Yukon. It says outfitting quota guidelines were developed 30 years ago and do not clearly include First Nations input. It also says multi-year quotas aren't supported under the Wildlife Act and that temporary measures to address the issue aren't working, preventing outfitters from planning ahead. The board will meet with First Nations, outfitters, and the public to hear their concerns. It anticipates the work will take up to 3 years to complete. Once finished, it will share its recommendations with the Yukon government. Michelle Dawson-Beatty is the chair of the board.
The review is about ensuring the system works well for everybody for long-term fairness, clarity, and transparency, supporting sustainable wildlife management, serving the public interest, and stewarding Yukon's wildlife populations for future generations.
Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston is attending an economic forum in Paris this week to promote partnerships with European companies. Meanwhile, a Mi'kmaq First Nation is preparing an Aboriginal title claim over a good chunk of the province. APTN video journalist Angel Moore spoke to the women on council and brings us this report.
Every day passing, our rights are not being respected, and we have to do something now.
Sipekne'katik First Nation Chief Michelle Glasgow and her council have agreed to prepare for an Aboriginal title claim.
Yeah, Aboriginal title claim is what's needed right now, and our rights as the First People have to be respected.
Sipekne'katik leadership say the Mi'kmaq must manage their lands and resources after the provincial government lifted resource extraction bans, such as on fracking, in order to attract mining companies to the province.
Because it's our land. You can't come in here and do whatever you want because because the premier said so. You can't. You have to talk to the Mi'kmaq. And if it's a good way and it's good for our environment, then we can entertain it. But if it's going to cause irreversible damage, then why would we?
Lena Knockwood says Mi'kmaq traditions and culture led to the decision to move forward with a title claim.
We're moving forward as a sovereign nation and not as conquered people. Our Aboriginal title claims will prove who are the real stewards of these lands.
This comes while Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston is in Paris at the Economic Forum of the Americas annual conference to develop international trade between Europe and Americas. Houston said in a press statement, "I am committed to working hard for Nova Scotians, and I consider it a privilege to make sure Nova Scotia is top of mind for European companies that are ready for partnership. And Nova Scotia is strategically located, globally connected, and has a lot to offer Europe, particularly when it comes to clean energy, critical minerals, and defense and security solutions." Deanne Sack has a message for Houston.
Nova Scotia is not for sale, Tim Houston. Our natural resources, our lands, our crown lands, our harvesting places, our medicine places, our lands are not for sale.
Logan Gihu says Aboriginal title is needed to protect Mi'kmaq rights and benefits.
From this title, we want to be able to be there to make the decisions when it concerns our people and our lands. And also, in the future, if we have economic benefits, we want our people to benefit from that as well.
Sipekne'katik is developing a team to research and determine how to proceed with the claim. Glasgow said the Mi'kmaq are long known to protect their rights.
You may think it's going to be easy, but you ain't met us. You ain't met Mi'kmaq when we're fighting for something we believe in.
Angel Moore, APTN National News, Sipekne'katik, Mi'kmaq Nation.
Some residential school survivors from a First Nation in Manitoba will travel across the province, revisiting the sites where some of their toughest memories took place. And as APTN Sav Jonesa tells us, the journey hopes to bring them closer to closure and harness the power of community.
Roughly 4 dozen residential school survivors have arrived at the first stop on their journey to the not-so-distant past. The Lake Manitoba First Nation residents are embarking on a tour of residential school sites in Manitoba, beginning with Fort Alexander in Seguin, Anishinaabe Nation.
We started with Saging because in keeping up with the way of our culture, everything starts from the eastern doorway. So Saging is our eastern doorway. This is our first one. And like, what a doorway.
Funded through the federal government, event coordinator Delma McLean says the goal is for the group to visit every residential school once attended by its members to help them in their healing journey. There are about 6 living survivors of Fort Alexander in her community, but some chose not to attend this event due to trauma.
A lot of anticipation, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. They have still a lot of bad memories that they've suppressed all these years and they have not talked about them.
The group group was treated to traditional drumming, inspirational speakers, and a hearty lunch before heading out to where the Fort Alexander Residential School once stood. Constructed in 1905, the school housed up to 60 students 10 months a year before it closed in 1970 and later demolished in 1972.
There was debates about whether or not it should have stayed up or not, but I think the majority of the residential school survivors would much rather forget the building, and not have to see it because so much happened to them in those schools.
The school grounds are now home to a band office, the Catholic church, which ran the residential school, the graveyard, and an open field. Elsie May Toyashing attended Fort Alexander with her brother for roughly 4 months when she was 15 years old.
Well, I'm sure happy to come and see, but it's so different from 65 years. A lot different. You cannot even see before there was no buildings, just the school itself and a few other buildings.
She says though her time there was short and mostly positive, she did witness another child get hurt.
So I was really scared. I would never do anything or move around or talk because I was scared to get slapped too.
Though many of the residential school survivors gathered at the site attended different schools, they took the opportunity to acknowledge the Fort Alexander students and put to rest some of their own memories.
I hope that they leave what happened to them here, that they have a forgiveness, a sense of hope.
McLean says Manitoba had 18 residential schools, and her group will journey to see more of them in 2026. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Chiefs in Ontario have gathered in Toronto this week to speak out against Ontario's Bill 5 and the federal government's Bill C5. That story when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. A number of Treaty 9 First Nations in Northern Ontario will be in a Toronto courtroom later this week. The province of Ontario is trying to quash the legal case launched against them by the First Nations over the federal government's Bill C5 and Ontario's Bill 5. Both pieces of legislation are meant to speed up projects seen as being in the so-called national interest, including the Ring of Fire in Ontario. The First Nations see the legislation as a threat to treaty sovereignty and the land. Kitchiname Gusib Aninawug is one of those nations who filed the legal action. We recently spoke with Chief Donnie Morris of that First Nation. Here's that interview. Chief Morris, thanks so much for taking some time to speak with us. You're on your way to Toronto for a legal case before the Ontario Superior Court this week. Can you tell us about the court case and bring us up to speed?
Well, this court case has to do with Bill 5 and C5. We feel, along with the other chiefs, I'm hoping that everybody will be there. Our goal is to try and tell government, there's a three-way process, even with KI. We signed treaty with Canada, Ontario, July 5, 1929, and we got to stick to that treaty we signed. It's not only for two governments. There's a three government, which is KI government. And that's our goal, is to prove to them, prove to the courts we need that legitimate discussions between the three parties if we're going to talk about economic development, and don't shove us to the side.
And Chief Morris, can you explain why did Treaty 9 First Nations bring forward your legal challenge?
Trump is not the answer to everything. I think that's what triggered it. Trump this, Trump that. So we're coming there to trump this Bill 5 and C5.
Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier Doug Ford are expected to sign a deal on Thursday. It's meant to reduce regulatory burdens on large projects, including the Ring of Fire. What are your thoughts on this deal and its timing?
I think they shouldn't be too worried about what happening in U.S. I think with the governments, Canada and Ontario here, there are treaty treaty signatory governments that signed. We need to be included in these processes, consultation, to consult with us. I mean, even when Prime Minister called for the chiefs to come meet, I think he should have called the 1 to 11 treaty signatories first to really hammer out what we're going to put out to the rest of Canada.
And it's been said previously, Chief, but can you explain what's at stake here?
At stake is I'm going to lose the authority, even though it's a struggle every day trying to prove to Ontario we have legal sovereignty up here. We have our homelands. We have everything. The treaty that is stated as it is on paper is not accurate. There is the other side of oral history that's been passed down to share with these Europeans that are coming into our territory. And I think we've been doing that pretty good, accommodating them. Now that we want to say, hold on, I think you guys are going too fast. We need to be players beside you guys.
Finally, Chief, you mentioned it a bit here already, but what is your message to the federal and provincial governments on how things are playing out right now?
I think it's not going out as I would have thought it would be put out to us. Like I said, I want to be a part of the process. I need to know what kind of funds are going to come to our communities in Northwestern region, which is Treaty 9. How are we going to work with the other surrounding communities in development, water, the species at risk, these type of things? We're the stewards of the land. We know what's happening. We see, we live it, we breathe it, and I think it's these bureaucrats sitting in their offices and with pen and paper and a map. They gotta get out from their desks and come up north and start meeting with us. That's what I would like to see happen.
Do you think also, Chief, do you think there is some divide and conquer politics happening within Ontario and the Ring of Fire here?
I think so. I mean, if that's the number he's giving out, 39.5, I'm still waiting for my 39.5 for them to endorse the withdrawal lands that I'm really pursuing for so many years in the past. We have lands that we want permanently withdrawn, and we want to look at options outside the perimeter of what economic development would look like as Kishnamek-Subininook. But apparently a premier is not responding to my YouTubes too, and also with Greg Rickford.
Chief Morris, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye, Chair.
It's now time for our Nation to Nation host, Karen Pugliese from Ottawa, to tell us what's happening on the last episode of the year. Karen?
To Nation, pipeline politics, controversial MOUs, and everything we didn't get to tell you about the Special Chiefs Assembly. We're sitting down with the journalists who've been covering these stories from the front row all year long. That's coming up right after the news.
Thank you, Karen. We now want to tell you about this week's third web poll question. Over on the website, we ask, are you spending more on Christmas this year than last year? You can answer yes, no, or about the same. Go to our website at aptnnews.ca to have your say. Our 12 Days of Languages continues with an all-new segment. We'll be right back. Miigwech for staying with us. Charlottetown -1 in sunny. Halifax +5. -9 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay and flurries. La Grande River, clear skies and -20. Quebec City, partly cloudy and -7. Montreal +1. Ottawa +1. Toronto +5. Sudbury, showers and 0. Sioux Lookout -16. -34 in Churchill. -37 in Thompson. -20 in clear skies in Winnipeg. Dauphin -24. -24 in Regina. North Battleford -21. -29 in La Ronge. -39 in Stony Rapids. -22 in Grand Prairie. Fort Chipewyan -16. -2 in Calgary, Edmonton -15. 3 in Kamloops, Bella Coola -6. Prince Rupert 0, Smithers -15. -44 in Dawson, -40 in Mayo. -30 in Yellowknife, Norman Wells -26. -20 in Tuktoyaktuk, Inuvik -20. -28 in Baker Lake, Chesterfield -28. And Iqaluit -24, Iqaluit -22. And language retention has been something many have worked on this past year, including here at APTN National News. This Christmas season, we bring you our version of the 12 Days of Christmas, and today we share some Tlingit words and memories as we get closer to the holidays.
Hello. Gary Sidney Johnson. When we say things like holidays, we say happy or merry or jolly is Siguwu. The word for Christmas is Kiswas in the Tlingit. And so we could say Siguwu Kiswas, Ka Siguwu Hanukkah, Ka Siguwu Kwanzaa. And so then that way we cover everything. Dleit Ka Wushtik. That means Frosty the Snowman. Dleit Ka Wushtik. It's also how we reference white people. We called them snowmen back in the day. And so growing up, I have like young childhood memories from like before 8 years old, where I'd have grandparents and aunts and uncles singing, celebrating, and meeting. And I felt like I was chasing that feeling for many, many years. And so now I'm an Indigenous Santa Claus for hire. I go by Cindy Claus. And the cool thing about this is my great-grandfather passed away when I was 13 years old. And so I'm having people come up to me now and telling me that I remind them of him and telling me stories that he used to dress up as Santa. Tliu Kwat Shil Tin is a good one. I'll say it again. Tliu Cut Shil Tin. That one's an Indigenous language word, so it has several translations, but it can mean like taking care of yourself, proceed with caution, drive safe. It means all of those things basically, but to do with an intent. One thing that it's famously used in is Santa Claus is coming to town. So this one is Dlikwachiltin Skidagachik Skayaslushik Yisakuge Cindy Plazia Ande Kwagut.
That was really cool. And that's your daytime newscast for this Thursday. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast in a few hours, including an all-new Truth and Politics discussion. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masi cho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Ekse.